You're listening to the Inner Strength Show. If you want to step into your greatness, you've come to the right place. Here is your host, the human strength expert, Kyle Newell.
Hey everybody, it's Kyle from Unlocking Your Inner Strength and UnlockingYourInnerStrength.com. Thanks for tuning in again this week to check it out. I think I got a pretty cool show planned for you. Hopefully you'll learn something and be able to apply something to your life. Before I forget, definitely check out UnlockingYourInnerStrength.com. And I hadn't even realized that I wasn't telling you guys about that until somebody asked, hey, is there a website for what you're doing? So that's where I put a lot of exclusive articles and content, and the first manual will be up soon. That just got finished being transcribed. So a lot of cool stuff that I'm going to have there that's going to be designed to help you propel forward in your life. For today's episode, I want you to think of a question and then think of what your answer would be. Would you rather have 4 quarters or 100 pennies? And now you might be saying, well, how is that relevant? What are you talking about? It applies to a lot of areas. When I was a young boy growing up in Michigan, and then later on when we moved to New Jersey, I was very, I don't want to say obsessed, but I was very into finding a best friend or having my best friends. You know, I didn't care about knowing a lot of people. I wanted to have a best friend. I wanted depth. I wanted to have somebody or one or two other guys that I could really connect with and go through life together. And I think I've always valued relationships that had more depth. All right. So when you think of your friends, I want you to think about what it's like if you're on Facebook. Maybe you have 500 friends. Maybe you have 1,000 friends. And it's such a silly term. We know what they mean. But you don't have 1,000 friends. You don't have 500 friends. And if you were friends with all those people that are friends with you on Facebook, I bet you could tell me very little about what makes each one of them tick or who they are, what their story is. So when it comes to having friends, and we're going to use this analogy for anything in your life, including goal setting and just trades or crafts that you're trying to master, it's much better to have fewer options. Too many options makes the brain go crazy. It makes it go haywire. I want you to think of all those 1,000 or so friends that you have on Facebook, and think about if you were truly going to be a friend to each one of them, the passion that you would have available to put into each one of those 1,000 relationships. The passion would be so little because you would have to divide it into all of them. And it wouldn't be fair because you wouldn't be able to give them your undivided attention. And when we're thinking of things that we want to be great at in life, like when I was first starting to be a strength coach and a personal trainer, I wanted to know everything. I spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on education and seminars. I wanted to know about anything I could with nutrition, anything I could with blah, 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 muscle building, bodybuilding, injuries. And while I learned a ton, and I would say I'm an expert in many of those areas, you can't be the best in the world at all of those things. Okay, you can't put the depth and the focus into a vast number of topics. So what are you focusing on in your life? I bet you that if you set your goals, or most people don't have actually long-term goals. They have to-do lists, daily to-do lists, and those daily to-do lists are usually a means to an end of moving you towards a goal or moving you down the field. But let me take a quick aside real quick. Most people's daily to-do lists are full of quadrant 1, 3, and 4 activities. They're not quadrant 2 activities. Remember, quadrant 2 are important activities that are not urgent, very easy to put off. Many times a daily to-do list is really just an exercise in futility, and it's really mental masturbation. You feel like you're getting stuff done, but you're not actually getting anything done because you're doing such menial tasks. You're answering emails, making phone calls that don't move the needle for you, stuff of that nature. So if you are setting a daily task list, make sure that they are important activities. 90% of them should be important activities, which are, planning, preparation, relationship building, the high focus activities that only you can do, creating. All right. So if you have a list of 10 things, you're not going to be able to put a lot into each of those 10 things. You can't. Our energy is finite. Our brain doesn't work like that. It can't multitask. It can't, really go deep and get a lot, like 10 super things done, even on a high focus day. That's impossible. Okay. Now, if you just had 2 things or 1 thing on that list, how much more effectively could you do that? How much more effectively could you put your mind, body, and soul into that 1 thing? And how much more accomplished would you feel at the end of that day rather than the day where you had 10 things on your list, you got 8 done, but none of them really seemed meaningful? Think again of how you've been doing it, or most people do it, where they might even have, let's say if they're really good at saying, okay, I'm going to get 3 things done today. And they work on 3 things for that day, but they only get 50% of each one done. What happens then? Your brain starts going to overwhelm because now they pile on to the next day, and it just compounds. The next day you might have 4 things, 5 things, 6 things, okay? And you just keep getting this feeling of overwhelm rather than taking 1 thing that's your top priority and getting that done. Get that done. It doesn't take up headspace. You can move forward. Did you ever hear of the saying, jack of all trades but master of none? That's the way most people go through life. They want 100 pennies in one hand, the bright, shiny object in that hand, rather than the 4 quarters in the other hand. It's not as sexy. You don't have as many of them. When you become the master of any particular field, you're the king. Okay? Now, what are you to do with all these other activities that you're not getting to or that you can't seem to master? You delegate them. It took me a long time to get to that myself. But I know there's only certain things that I'm good at. Thinking creatively, writing, okay, of all types. And that's about it. Those are my 2 strengths. Anything else that needs to be done, I can delegate. But so many people get in their own way and they feel like they have to be a control freak, and they got to have, it's a perfectionist mindset. I got to do everything myself. Meanwhile, again, you're building up the backlog and you're getting more overwhelmed. So think of what you can become a master of. What are you focusing on? Again, you have all these little mental magnets when you have 100 things to do. Do a brain dump, okay, which I'll go over in a second. Get everything out of your head. Pick the 1 thing you have to do, and then you move forward. So a brain dump, before I forget to go over that so you can use it, is where you take a notebook, blank piece of paper, distraction-free zone, and you go for 30 to 50 minutes. Okay, the creator of this, Dean Jackson, actually had a 50-minute timer. And you write down anything that's on your mind. These things do not have to be related. They don't have to connect. It's not a goal list. It might be, okay, I want to see this movie. I want to go out to dinner with Devin. I got to do this for the gym. I got to do this for unlocking your inner strength. They don't have to be connected. Whatever, it's like a stream of consciousness. Usually when you get to that 5 to 10 minute mark, you're going to hit a wall and you're not going to be able to keep going. Wait, because then it's going to come flowing out of you. Now, once you clear up that headspace and get rid of those mental magnets, you can get down to, okay, this is the thing I have to do first. Okay, so you give them a hierarchy. You rank them, you do it, you complete it, move it out of the way. There was a great book called The One Thing. And in The One Thing, he talks about dominoes. And they've actually proven this with studies, scientific studies, where a domino can knock over a domino twice its size. So if you had a 1-inch domino, it can knock over the domino that's 2 inches. A 2-inch domino can knock over a 4-inch domino. 4-inch domino can knock over an 8-inch domino. So you get where I'm going with this? So you have to go back to that smallest domino and say, what is that one domino? What is the one thing that's going to move me down the chain, move me down the field, move the chains down the field? The key here, guys and girls, is to link everything you do in your life to your ultimate goals. Everything you do in your life should be linked back to those goals. I'm not talking about when you're chilling out and having a free day, but even those link back to your goals, because that's when you recharge and you can perform at your best once you're fresh. So you got to start thinking like that. If I gave you the option of $1 million right now, okay, or I give you a penny doubled for 31 days, which one would you take? So think about that for a second. I used to do this with my students all the time. And if you're a student of compounding interest or compounding effects, you know the answer to this. It's not the $1 million. It's a penny doubled every day for 31 days, which winds up being over $10 million. Because the effort around day 13 or so starts to explode and you start to see the payoff. So a lot of this mental masturbation when we're making these tedious to-do lists make us feel like we're accomplished and we're being busy. Being busy doesn't mean anything. Anybody can be busy. Somebody who works in a toll booth, not that that's a bad thing. Everybody's got their role in life, right? But they can be busy. Are they accomplishing much? No, they aren't. They're moving people through a toll. They're not changing the world. I guarantee you they're not living their passion. So we don't want to just be busy. We want to be effective and we want to leave an impact and a legacy. And this all comes down to knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing what you stand for, knowing what your values are, knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your weaknesses are. And most people want those 100 pennies. Again, we're speaking of analogy here because it's a distraction. Most people don't have the endurance to make it to that mythical 13th day, let's call it, where the compounding interest and the compounding energy and effect explodes. And remember, I've said this in another episode, enthusiasm is everybody's got that right out the gate. Enthusiasm is very easy. Willpower's around when you first start something. Endurance is very rare. So if you know that and you just say, okay, I'm going to play the endurance game. And the only way you can play the endurance game is if you're doing something you're truly passionate about. The only way you can do something you're truly passionate about is if you have a very, very, very narrow focus. Now, I'm not saying that I'm one-dimensional. I have many areas of interest, but when I'm locked into one thing, I'm locked into one thing. When I'm learning about one thing, I'm learning about one thing. You see what I'm saying? So how do you determine what those 4 quarters are going to be in your life? Well, there's a couple ways you could do that. First, you can look at whatever thoughts or ideas give you energy and which ones don't. You want to stay away from the ones that drain you and that don't give you energy. You're going to be going down the wrong path. You cannot have an endurance in the terms of passion with stuff that doesn't give you energy. So that's the first thing. Look at which road gives you energy. Or you can say, okay, if we're literally talking about 4 things or 5 things, because we added a 5th F in, but let's say it's 4 things. You can look at your financial, freedom, fun, and fulfillment. And then one underlying goal for the time being with each of those areas. And that's your focus. And you will get so much more done in the next year if that's how you start thinking than if you do this 100 penny mentality where you just want all these distractions and you want to feel like you're busy. And, it goes down to that. It goes back to that 4 Horsemen article, which you can read on Unlocking Your Inner Strength about the brain chemicals. We have the selfish brain chemicals. And then we have the selfless brain chemicals. The selfish ones are there to do things like they get high on like little to-do lists and things of that nature. When you're using the selfless ones, we always want to feel a sense of accomplishment and the brain wants to move forward. But the selfless ones are we're really putting forward our greatest effort in life and our greatest art and our greatest work. And if you can't put that forward, you're robbing other people of the opportunity to hear what your gift is. So that's actually a selfish thing on your part. And that's a quick aside. If you have something to offer the world, it's your duty to make sure that the world gets that. It's your duty to put that out there and not be scared, because you're going to connect with one person. I can't tell you how many times when I thought, man, nobody's hearing my message. Nobody's understanding me. Nobody's getting where I'm coming from. And then I'll get somebody, let's say at Newell Strength, where it's like, man, I've been reading your message and it really vibed with me. I was at a low point in my life. And if I didn't read that and I didn't make it here, I don't know where I'd be right now. So it's your duty to put out your best effort and your best art to the world. So to recap, all right, we're talking about having 4 friends or 200 friends, 4 quarters or 100 pennies. Whatever it is, would you rather have depth or width? Okay, if you have 100 pennies, you can't go that deep with knowing each one and the history of each one and all that type of stuff. If you have 4 quarters, you can become the master of those 4 quarters, and you can know them inside and out and look at it both ways. And if it's a topic you're trying to learn and you have a course or a book, read that 5 to 10 times. Go through the course 5 to 10 times. You will get so much more depth and you'll be a master at that, rather than if you just read it once and then you're on to the next thing. And that's a mistake I've made. I have so many books, guys. I was actually thinking about the other day, I probably will not be able to finish all the books I have before I die. And that's kind of crazy to think about. And I'm a consistent and fairly quick reader. I've gotten better at reading, but I probably won't finish them all before I die. And if I could go back, I would pick the ones and the courses and the books that really made an impact on me. And that's what I'm doing now. And I'm going to go through them again, until I become the master of them. So that is just something to think about right there. Are you linking everything to your goals? Or are you just kind of piddling around and making these daily to-do lists that make you feel good in the moment, but when you look back and say, man, I really didn't accomplish anything of meaning today? And that's how most people go through life. You don't want that to be you. That's putting you with the average and the mediocre, and that's the worst place to be. Arnold Schwarzenegger said the worst thing in the world to be is average. And he's right. Because everybody's average. Otherwise, you know what I'm saying? Or not everybody, but 90% of the people are average. You don't want that to be you. You want to be a 1%er. And then finally, what are you focusing on? What's the one thing? What's that one domino that you can push? And again, when it gets to that 31st domino, that domino is long enough to reach from here to the moon, literally. So it's that compounding effect. Look it up, do the math if you don't believe me. But a domino can knock over a domino that's twice as big. Now, it can't knock over a domino that's 10 times as big, so I can't take a 1-inch domino and have it knock over a 10-inch domino. What are the steps in between that I have to fill in? And it's usually that great unknown. People are starting at the first domino and thinking of the 10th thing they have to do, or where they want to be, so they don't know how to fill that space, so they put in all this meaningless thing without going deep into any of the topics, without ever completing everything. And they can never get past domino number 2, or they always seem to stay stuck on domino number 1. And it's just a faulty thinking pattern, all right, faulty thought pattern. So I want you to think about that stuff. I want you to get better at your life. Life is a game. You got to practice it. You got to learn how to play at your peak. You got to learn yourself. You got to know yourself. You become more self-aware. You know, what environments do you perform best in? What time of day? It's all about knowing yourself and self-awareness and making course adjustments. So that's all I got for you this week. I know we kind of hit a lot of topics in that one, but I really wanted to get across the point of depth versus volume, or depth versus width. And thanks for checking it out. Please tell some of your friends about the show if you're liking it. I've been getting a lot of good feedback from many of you, and I'm glad you're liking the show. If you hadn't had the chance, please leave a review on iTunes, good, bad, or ugly. Even if it's bad, leave a review so I know what to fix and what to make better. I know this is a work in progress, but I really appreciate the support. Definitely check out unlockinginnerstrength.com, and I'll be back next week for more. Peace, guys.
You've been listening to The Inner Strength Show. If you enjoyed the show, remember to subscribe, rate, and review us in iTunes.